Hello and good evening. This is Kathy Long, and you should be hearing my audio right now. Okay? So if you don't hear my audio, please check the volume level on your computer and make sure your volume is turned up. Also, on your GoToWebinar control panel, there's an audio module. You can do a sound check located there. You can also switch from a microphone and speakers to telephone, or from telephone to microphone and speakers. If you continue to have audio difficulties, you can call the GoToWebinar support number at 1-888-259-8418. Okay? You will not need a camera today or a webcam. You might be able to use your microphone a little bit later in the presentation, but we'll also be using the question panel. And that question panel is also located on your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you will, go ahead and locate that question panel. You place your cursor in the enter a question for staff and just say hello, let me know that you can hear me and that you've located the question panel. Great, I see that Lori has found it and says hello. Hi Heather, and hello Valerie as well. Great, we have a couple more folks on the line with us today. If you can, Debbie and Jay and I think Kevin, if you can locate that question panel, let me just know that you're there and that you know where you can ask questions at any time during the presentation. Okay. Okay, so the reason why when we use a GoToWebinar, which is what I'm using right now, which is one of the go-to products, one of the reasons why I have all my participants come in with their microphones muted is because I'm not sure how large my audience is going to be. So typically GoToWebinar is a product that we use with more audience larger than 25 people. Okay, it allows me a little bit of flexibility. So any of the Ivy Learn or any of the statewide training sessions that I do, I typically use GoToWebinar for that particular tool. So my name is Kathy Long. I am the Senior Training Specialist for the Center for Instructional Technology. I've been with Ivy Tech for about 15 years. I started out in the region in Indianapolis as an online technology coordinator and now work here in the Center for Instructional Technology. I'm also the coordinator and for this particular course, also the instructor for the Online Faculty Certification Program. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to go through and just have like a minute to 2 minutes for each one of you to introduce yourselves. I'm going to give you microphone access, and I'm going to start with Brenda Campbell. So Brenda, I'm going to turn on your microphone, and you want to make sure that in your control panel, there she is.
Hello.
Brenda. Hi Brenda. Do you want to tell us just briefly a little bit about who you are and what you teach here at Ivy Tech?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Are we viewing each other as well? Are we just audio?
No. The only thing you should be seeing right now is my Blackboard homepage.
Okay, great. Okay. And you don't see me either, right? Okay, great. My name is Brenda Campbell, and I teach in Lafayette the ASA math courses.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and mute your microphone, and I'm going to turn on Debbie's microphone so she can introduce herself. So give me just 1 second here, Brenda. And Debbie, you now have microphone access. You want to make sure on your go-to control panel. There you are. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Kathy.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am actually a new instructor for Ivy Tech. I've been adjunct, like PRN, fill-in, for about 2 years now, and haven't been able to schedule a course that fit my schedule because I've been trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So, so that's the reason online became very attractive, and so that's why I'm doing online.
Great. Well, wonderful. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Heather, you're next on the list here, so I'm going to turn off Debbie's microphone and turn on Heather. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Heather Wierzbinski-Cross, and I'm from the Richmond region. I am Department Chair for the nursing programs here in Richmond, and I taught online for our campus across the street for Indiana University East for several years as adjunct before I came here full-time. And yeah, so this course is a lot more work than I anticipated.
It is a lot of work, I understand. Well, Heather, I'm glad that you're with us today. And next on our list is Jay. So I'm going to turn off your microphone, Heather, for just a moment. Hi, Jay. Can you hear us? And would you like to introduce yourself? Jay, we can't hear you, so I want to make sure on your GoToWebinar control panel there's a little microphone, and you want to make sure that microphone is turned to green. So make sure that you're unmuted. Okay. Jay, we're not able to hear your audio, but if you'd like to continue to communicate with us through the question box, please feel free to do so. We're glad that you're here with us. Next, joining us this evening is Kevin. Kevin, hello, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Kevin. I'm an adjunct instructor in South Bend, teaching the Intro to Criminal Justice and hopefully paralegal classes.
Wonderful. Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Lori. Lori, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Lori Parpert. I'm from the Northwest region. I'm a full-time employee in the nursing department, and for online I am teaching the IVYT, which is the Success in Healthcare.
Wonderful. Welcome. Okay. The next on our list is Val or Valerie. How are you today?
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
This is Val Ray, and I'm from the Richmond region. I'm the Executive Director of Resource Development.
Okay, we don't have the best connection with you, Val, but I wanted to double check. Were you originally in maybe the bursar's office or registration?
You have a very good memory. That is one of the positions. I was in the registrar's office, and then I was also in charge of the finance area.
Great. I know that we have talked before in our many years here at the campus through email correspondence about many different things. So welcome to the class. I'm glad you're going to be part of our learning community.
Thank you.
Okay. I think a couple people have joined us since we started our introductions. Anisha, I know that you joined us just a few minutes late, and then I think Catherine joined us as well. So there's going to be two ways that we can communicate today during our webinar discussion together. One is using the question panel on your GoToWebinar control panel. So post a question or just say hello using the question box. Also, if you would like to raise your hand if you have a question or comment during the presentation, I'll be glad to turn your microphone on. Right now, Anisha, I'm going to turn your microphone on so you can introduce yourself to the rest of the class.
I was just wondering why I'm not able to unmute myself. Hi everyone, I'm Anisha. Sorry I'm a little late. I'm glad to be part of this team, and I'm an adjunct at the Lafayette Ivy Tech. I teach maths, the ASC maths, and some computer science.
Great. Well, thank you, Anisha, for joining us. And you asked a very good question. You know, why when I do these GoToWebinar particularly, why do I use, have everyone come in as muted? And the reason is especially depending on your audience. We have probably about 10 folks joining us today, all online at the same time, which is not a super large group. All have audiences as large as 800 to 1,000 people sometimes. But when you have their microphones come on all at once, then you have dogs barking in the background or people typing or people eating their dinner. There's a lot of external noise. So when I use a GoToWebinar when I'm teaching classes or doing a study session, I always bring in my microphones muted. And this allows me a little bit more control over the audio situation. And I always provide a way for people to participate. So as I've mentioned, today you can participate by using the question panel, so asking questions at any time, or if you raise your hand, I'll be glad to turn your microphone back on so you can ask that question in person. Okay. That leaves Catherine, I believe, to say hello and introduce yourself. So Catherine, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Katie. I teach at the campus at Lawrenceburg. I've also taught at Batesville, but my primary campus is Lawrenceburg. I teach Sociology 101. Let's see, what else about me? I don't know. I'm not that exciting. You have to read my introduction. I make myself more exciting in writing, but I'm glad to be joining you all today.
Well, we're glad to have you too, Catherine. And just as a side note, I love the Lawrenceburg area. My brother is a pastor down there at Tanner Valley Methodist Church. So I spend a lot of time in Lawrenceburg, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful area. So that's enough excitement for me. It's just gorgeous down there. So we're glad you can join us today. Okay, so we're getting together today to talk about communication, and there are several ways that we're going to communicate with our students. And there's also not only how we communicate with our students, but what we're communicating with students. So in using your control panel and the question box, tell me some different things that you can think of that's important to communicate to students. So what types of things are we going to actually communicate to students as instructors? Great. I'm getting some really great ideas here. Lori states feedback. Absolutely. Grading feedback is the #1 thing that students want to receive. Grading feedback. What's my grade? And when are you going to tell me what that grade is? It is also the biggest complaint. As serving as an online technology coordinator for many years, students would say my instructor isn't communicating with me, my instructor isn't giving me grading feedback. So it's very important as instructors that we use that grading feedback and communicating with those students in a timely manner. Typically, we want to respond back to our students with grading feedback within 7 days. That's kind of within our policy that's in the ASOM manuals. So we want to make sure that we're getting back with our students and trying to grade those within 7 days or sooner if we can. So as an online instructor, we're going to talk a lot about not only should students have good time management, but as faculty members, we need to have good time management as well. Because when are we going to block out those times to actually do that grading, to give good grading feedback, and to use all these communication tools that we need to instruct the class? So feedback is great. So Lori, thank you for that answer. Heather says clarification of assignments and questions, and that's absolutely correct. So part of our policy is we will respond back to students within 36 hours, and that does include weekends, 36 hours period or sooner. So you want to make sure that when you're setting up your online course, you're very clear about what your communication methods and preferences are. So if you remember in that statewide syllabus document, you have the opportunity to select either email or messages as your preferred communication method. Whichever method you're going to check more frequently, that's what I would suggest using your communication method as. Remember, messages is internal to Blackboard, so you're going to log into Blackboard, you're going to check that messages area, and you're going to also respond to that messages area. I personally like email because I have that on my mobile device at all times. But that's a personal choice that you get to make. But we will be responding back to students' questions within 36 hours. So thank you, Deb. That was a great, yes, Brenda, let's see. I'm losing track of my line here. Heather, that was your suggestion, and that's great. Valerie suggests course outcomes. Absolutely. Again, that grading feedback, that assignment feedback, we're going to use that communication tools. Anisha suggests phone. We can use a phone as a communication tool. We'll talk about that in just a few more minutes. Deb suggests we want to share our course resources. Absolutely. So we want to make sure that we're actually communicating and teaching the course content. And there are several ways that we can do that. Online learning is a lot of reading, it's a lot of self-direction, but there are things as an online instructor that we can do to enhance that learning environment. We can do that by creating our own online lectures. We can provide PowerPoint slides with narration or PowerPoint slides with study guides. We can also participate in those discussion board areas. That's a very rich learning environment. Participating in those discussion boards, making those come to alive, applying your life experience and your teaching experience to those questions in the discussion box is a way to really bring that content to life, bring your personality to the course and your life experience. I like to think of it this way. An online course is really only as good as the online instructor. And the more engaged you are with your students and the more engaged you are with the content, the better the experience is going to be for both you as the instructor and the student. Okay? I can buy a book, it might have a CD or a website, and I can follow along, but the instructor is the one who really brings this content to life. So you're the most important part of the online environment. We have other suggestions too that we want to communicate our office hours. Absolutely. We also want to make sure that we are communicating clear due dates. This is all very good types of communication that we want to make sure we're having with our students. Jay, I'm sorry that you're having some difficulty with your listening device. Sometimes if you're on a wireless network on a GoToMeeting, it can get stagnated, it can kind of buffer a little bit. So if you're on a microphone headset, you can switch over to a phone line or vice versa. So Jay, hang in there with us. I'm also recording this presentation as well. Okay, Brenda has a great question. Won't Canvas make it easier on receiving messages? Brenda, IvyLearn, which is our version of Canvas, is going to be miraculous. How many of you, just show me here in the question box, how many of you have attended any IvyLearn training sessions or have used the Canvas environment? Heather, I knew you. You're a super user. And Val has, okay, and Jay, you're waiting a little bit. Okay. Some folks have attended Canvas training, and you've used Canvas in the past, Kevin. Great. IvyLearn training sessions, fantastic. Okay. All right, well, wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about, let's get into the Blackboard environment, and I'd also kind of like to show you, since you're in this very unique group of folks, we weren't quite through our IvyLearn transition to this new LMS, and I know that you guys want to be certified to teach online. So I want you to think about the principles, what we communicate to students, the types of things we're communicating with students are going to stay the same no matter what our learning platform is. Okay? The tools that we use to communicate are what changes. Okay? So when we go into our Blackboard environment, we click on our classes and we enter into the course. So let's go ahead and we're going to enter in one of my demo courses here. And this just happens to be the psychology course that you folks have been using as well for your practice shells. Okay? So the number one thing we have as a communication tool is called announcements. And we're going to use the announcement tools to keep students on track on a weekly basis. So perhaps this week we're going to be learning these particular things. Or even if it's a traditional or a hybrid environment, we're going to use that announcement page to talk about upcoming field trips, or don't forget registration is coming up. Anything that you would announce at the beginning or an end of a classroom environment in a traditional environment can also be done here using the announcement page. Now in Blackboard, it's a static announcement, so it's just text-based, or I can actually post a video to it as well. So here we have in our announcement, attention students, welcome to class. You've also noticed that I've used in our own class for this, our online faculty certification program, that I've posted some announcements like here, welcome, and then I also posted the information about our GoToMeeting time. Okay, so that's the announcement page, and in Blackboard it's very static. It's just a text-based. I'm going to jump over and give you a preview of what it looks like in our Ivy Learn environment, which is also known as Canvas. Okay, so I'm going to jump into, this is what the Canvas environment looks like, or Ivy Learn. It opens up to this dashboard area, okay, and these are called course cards. So these course cards are how you actually enter into your classes. This left-hand side of the page here, this is called our Global Navigational Toolbar. And over here on the right-hand side, this is called the sidebar. Okay, so just a little FYI. So let's jump into one of these courses, and I want to show you what the announcement tool looks like in an online course using this environment. So when I click Announcements, announcements in the Ivy Learn environment actually becomes interactive. Okay, so I'm going to add an announcement. It's very simple and straightforward to use. Add an announcement, just like in Blackboard. I add an announcement or create an announcement there. I give it a topic and I give it some content. Okay, so let's just use our example. So I can now post a question to my students. I'm available this week to meet online. What days are best for you? If I scroll down here, I can delay the posting. The announcement page also allows you to interact, okay? So I can actually require, like a discussion board, my participants to read any post by their coworkers or actually post something for themselves before they see anything else. But in this case, I'm just going to click Save. And I now have this announcement. I'm available this week to meet online. What days are best for you? You, as my participants, as my students in the class, can now reply okay. And this announcement page now becomes an interactive tool. Okay, so this is a great way to interact with students. Did you read the announcement? Can you confirm that you did? Those kinds of things. So you make that announcement page now very interactive in the Canvas environment, or better known as Ivy Learn. So when we talk about our communication plan, we talk about how we're going to communicate with students and what tools we're going to use. This is a great way to kind of be thinking about, in the Ivy Learn environment, I'm going to be using that announcement tool in both formats. And this is a little bit different. I can now get feedback on my announcements from my students in the Ivy Learn environment. Okay. Debbie, it looks like you have your hand raised. I'm sorry if that's from earlier. I'm going to turn on your microphone so you can ask your question. Deb, do you have a question?
From earlier. No, I do not.
Oh, okay. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so this is the difference in the announcement tool. Let's go back into our Blackboard environment. Okay. We also want to talk about the discussion board area. Okay, so in discussions, when I click on discussions, this is available both in our Ivy Learn platform and then also in our Blackboard environment. Discussion boards are forums. This allows every single person in the class to participate. So if you're teaching in a traditional classroom, you always have the one student who's really chatty, they always want to engage in the conversation, and you always have that student who's holding back, who doesn't want to engage, maybe they're a little shy, they don't like talking in public. With the discussion board, this allows every single person in the class to participate. So you can use a discussion board even in your hybrid and traditional classroom experiences. Okay. So the very first thing that all online courses have is the introduction discussion, because we want to build that learning community. The more that we can engage with our students, the more that we can get them part of the activities and part of that learning community, the better chance they have of successfully completing the course. Okay? So the discussion board area is not just a placeholder, but this is really a rich teaching environment for you as an instructor. So when I go into my introduction discussion, the first thing I want to do is I want to post my introduction. So if you notice in our online faculty certification course, I was one of the first people to post my own biography because I wanted you to get to know me a little bit, and I wanted to get to know you. So I'm reading, especially in that introduction discussion, I'm reading all of your posts, and I'm trying to respond back to each and every one of you. Now, during the course of a semester, these discussion board forums can get very lengthy. The reason I want to take the time to get to know someone in that first initial forum and answer everyone is because I want them to feel welcome. I want to try to build that connection from the very beginning. Okay. The other thing, too, in the discussion board, once you start going throughout the semester, it's important that you read those posts, but you do not have to respond back to every single student. Okay? This is where your teaching experience comes in. This is where your life experience comes in. So, for example, our fire science department, they have a website, and they'll discuss, you know, large fires, small fires, resources that were available to those fire departments, you know, to do their jobs. So a lot of times the fire science department will post, you know, a story from that website, and then they will discuss, you know, in your own local region, or how would you handle this, what resources would you call in, and as the instructor, who's usually a firefighter himself, he can add his life experience. We had a similar fire like this, you know, in '93. This is what we did to handle it. If we had to learn something from it, these are the things that we would add. So use your expertise as an instructor, as a subject matter expert, and really bring these discussion boards alive. It's a great, rich teaching experience. It works exactly the same way in our Ivy Learn environment. So the discussions are typically built right into the modules. So modules are the equivalent of class sessions in Blackboard, and modules are very organized by an overview, the readings, and then they have the assignments located right directly into them as well. Okay, so I'm going to go into my discussion board introduction, and this is what it looks like in Ivy Learn. Here's my introduction, and I just click reply. Okay, I just type it in. Okay, and here's someone here who's also replied to this particular discussion board. Very straightforward. I want to show you as well, here you see in this particular area, there's my profile picture. Okay, I have this created in Blackboard. Our statewide templates encourage you to add your picture under your course information or your contact information. They encourage you to post a picture. And in our Ivy Learn environment, one of the first things you're going to do, and that policy is going to require you to do, is to set up your personal profile. Now, why is this important? It's important to put a face to the name. Think of it this way. If I am a telemarketer, and a telemarketer calls you, and they say, hey, would you like to buy some cookies? And you're like, no, because I don't bother me at home, right? I don't want to talk to you, a telemarketer. And you hang up the phone, and that's the end of that. But if you see the really cute little Girl Scout next door who's knocking on your door saying, would you like to buy some Girl Scout cookies? You're identifying with their face. They become a real human. They're not a faceless caller out there in cyberspace. It's the same thing in the teaching environment. Studies show that to build retention, we really need to be making that connection visually as well as through the written word. So it's very important for you to set up your user profile, and then also even here on Blackboard you can set up your picture as well, and that shows up in your discussion board in several different places. To set up your picture in Blackboard, you go up here to the global navigation menu. Okay, this is what this is. When I click on it, my name, okay, I can actually click on my picture here. It would be just a blank avatar if you hadn't set this up. Okay. And I can set up my settings and privacy. And this is where I change my picture. And I just click Change Picture. And I can upload a new picture, and it automatically makes it the appropriate size for me. So if you haven't already done so, I really encourage you to go ahead and then also set up your profile picture in Blackboard. Okay. If you haven't used Ivy Learn yet, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to learn how to log in, and you're going to learn how to set up your profile. And I'm going to give you a quick link. So here's our statewide training events. They're all webinar based, and after we've completed the webinars, we actually have, we post the webinars and also the handouts that go along with that. Okay, so right here on this page. So I'm going to make sure that you have this. I'm going to give you this as well as regional events that are going on in your campuses. So I'll put this in the chat box for you in case you want to reference it a little bit later. Okay? So you're going to do this in Ivy Learn under the account settings, and in Blackboard you're going to create your profile using the global navigational toolbar at the top of the right side of the page. Okay, let's go back into our course. Okay, so we've talked about announcements, we've talked about discussion boards, and here we have messages or email. Okay, so on your syllabus document, you're going to select using either email or messages. Email is your Ivy Tech email account. We do ask, even if you're an adjunct that teaches from multiple institutions, that you always use your Ivy Tech email for Ivy Tech business. If you choose to use messages, we click here on Messages, or it's also available under Communication and Tools, and I can create a message for my students. And when I do that, I create message, and I click the To button. When I click the To button, it'll list all of my students in the course, as well as any instructors. And this is available to both students and faculty. Okay, so I select the person I want to communicate with by clicking their name, and then I click the little arrow to move it over to the recipient box. I give it a subject, okay, and then I enter my message. And then, of course, everything in Blackboard, I always hit Submit. Okay. Now, with course messages in the Blackboard environment, you have to log into Blackboard, you have to log into the class, you got to click into the, there's a lot of clicking, okay? And then you have to, for the student to see it, they have to know and they have to remember to log back into Blackboard, to log into messages, and to check for their message in the messaging tool in Blackboard. It's very, very cumbersome. One of my #1 favorite things in communication tools that I think you're really going to love in the Ivy Learn environment is there's one place for creating a message and multiple ways to receive it. So let's go into our Ivy Learn environment here. Okay, this is our global navigation menu, and there's this area called our inbox. Okay, inbox. When I click on the inbox, you'll see a series of things called conversations. This is a new Ivy Learn vocabulary term. So conversations is the same thing as messages, or is similar to messages in Blackboard. Okay, you'll see here that I can see all of my courses, or I can just look at one course individually and see my messages for that. Okay, I can have my inbox here, or I can see all the unread messages. I can see my sent messages. Very simple and easy to use. The beauty of this is that I can actually create a conversation or a message to my students. So when I click To, I can select many, many students in my class. Okay. So let me give you a scenario for this. I have 2 or 3 students who are missing assignments, or maybe they haven't logged into my class at all. Okay? Instead of in Blackboard where I have to send each student an individual message for confidentiality purposes, I can send the same message to multiple students. So I'm going to say missing assignment. And with this little feature right here, I can compose one individual message, and it will be sent individually to each one of these students that I've selected. Okay? So again, instead of composing multiple messages over and over again, I can now create one message and send it to multiple students, but the students only receive that message as an individual and not as a group message. Okay, so pretty darn cool. Okay, one communication stream. I click send. Now, in IvyLearn, the beauty of this is this thing called notifications. Notifications can be set up and established up here under my account settings. This is the #1 communication tool in the IvyLearn platform. Okay? What this allows me to do as a student or as an instructor is I can get notifications about any type of content change that happens within my course. Okay? And it's by each activity. If a due date changes, I can be notified about it, or I can choose not to be notified about it. And I can also tell myself how I want to be notified. So I can be notified right away. I can be sent a daily summary. I can be sent a weekly summary, or I can say do not send me anything. I can also set up multiple ways to receive this. So if I want to receive this notification through my IvyTech email, if I want to receive it through my Gmail account, if I want to receive it on my mobile device, I can. Okay? So it's very, very powerful. This allows students to stay engaged and be notified of changes any way that they prefer. Okay? So one message going out, many, many different ways to receive that. The same thing for you as a faculty member. So let's say there's been some discussion posts and I want to be notified of those discussion posts. Or if someone has sent me a conversation, better known as a message, I can be notified about that. Okay? I select what I want to be notified about and how I want to be notified and how frequently. It's very, very powerful. You guys have to give me a sign now. Are you guys still with me? Pretty cool stuff. Thank you, Lori. She says she's still here and very interesting. Kevin, cool stuff, very exciting. Great. Val's still here as well. Okay, wonderful. Brenda and Catherine are with me too, and Deb. So, okay, great. So I'm really excited about this particular tool. I'll give you a personal example. My son is a student athlete at Anderson University. And when I told him we were transferring over to the Canvas environment, he was like, oh, Mom, that's so easy. Let me show you how it's done. And over lunch, he was very excited to show me from the student perspective what is going on in his Canvas application. So he pulls out his phone, and it helps him stay on track. Not only are all the due dates populating, he can also submit assignments, and it really is helping him manage his time as a student athlete. And it was very simple for him to use as a student. He said he did not receive any training whatsoever. It was just kind of instinctive. Okay, excuse me. So Brenda asked, can I as a faculty member select all means of contact with students? Now remember, you're not dictating how the student receives the notification. You're only setting your individual preferences. And the student also sets their individual preference. Okay? So even if they choose not to be notified, for example, say John's student says, no, I don't want to be notified if I have a conversation or a message. Okay? When they log in to the IvyLearn platform, you'll notice that this inbox has a little number. So this will also be a visual communication to them that they have a notification or a conversation waiting for them in their inbox. Okay. Jay says that they like the freedom that it gives both the instructor and the student, and I totally agree. Last year we did an LMS on tour when we were trying to figure out what LMS faculty really like and what they really want to use in the classroom. And that every single faculty we talked to said, I really think students want to be they want to receive text messages from me. And in the surveys that the students filled out for us, not one single student said, I want my instructor to text me. Not one single student. So we were completely off as faculty thinking they want us to text them. They did not want to receive information from their instructor that way. This puts a lot of power in the student's hands. So instead of having one size fits all, it can really be modified to that individual preference. And I think it's really powerful, and I'm looking forward to making that transition. So that's conversations and messages, how we're communicating with students on a regular basis. Okay, let's go back in here to Blackboard. Okay, so we've also talked about grading feedback is very important to students. So when we go into the Grade Center, and you'll notice that we do have in our communication, we talk a lot about, you know, grading feedback. What is good grading feedback? Okay, and not every single thing actually requires a lot of discussion, but sometimes you really do need to give good grading feedback, and that's very important to do. So when we're doing assignments, let me find something here. So here's an introduction discussion board. When I click on this to grade it, I can always give grading feedback. Okay, and you just do that over here in the feedback to learner. Okay, so I encourage you, especially if it's something that you're learning a progression for, like math, for example, you're usually starting off with a foundation and adding to that every time, or in an English course, if you want them to correct some type of behavior, you want to make sure that you're giving that really good grading feedback and why they're earning the grade that they're earning. Even in the discussion board forums, we really expect students to post an original post and then also respond back to at least 2 other students in the class. So if you don't give them full credit, for example, I really like your original post, however you did not communicate with other students in your class, you want to make sure you're giving them that kind of feedback, and that's reflected in their grade as well. So grading feedback is very important. And again, typically we're responding back and we're grading student work within 7 days. Okay? Now there will be times during the semester, if you're grading huge projects, if you you have a conference that you're attending to, so your normal day for grading is set aside, you want to make sure that you're just communicating that. That would be a great example of when you would use the announcement tool to say, hi, I am in the process of grading your assignments at this point in time. I will be most likely have them graded by such and such date. So again, just clearly communicating. Okay. If a student or multiple students send you a question through your email account, and it's the same question being asked over and over again, it's most likely that there's even more students who have that same question. One trick that you can employ is that if I get multiple questions, I can use that announcement page to answer everyone. So I might say, several of you have brought to my attention that the GoToWebinar link is broken in our announcement page. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Here is the correct link. Okay, so you can preference it that way, that you are getting multiple questions and answering that in one location. Okay, there are several other tools that an online instructor typically employs, and one of them is BBIM, Blackboard Instant Messaging. Blackboard Instant Messaging is an instant messaging tool. You both have to be online at the same time to communicate. Okay, so with instant messaging, we're both going to be online. It automatically, all of the students in the class are enrolled in the BBIM, so you'll see them located there even if they haven't registered or downloaded BBIM. Okay, this is a great way to do online office hours. Just make it available, be available, have it turned on. If you're sitting in your office or if you're doing grading, just be available through BBIM to answer those student questions. And again, you have to both be online at the same time to do that. I do believe that's an activity that we've created for you in the online faculty certification course. So if you have any difficulty downloading BBIM, just let me know. It's a very simple tool to use. It will be going away. We won't have that for summer. We are going to be replacing that with something called Google Hangouts. And we also have a tool in Ivy Learn called Chat. So let me show you here in Ivy Learn. I can go into a class. Oops, clicked the wrong link here. And there's this area called Chat. And in the Ivy Learn environment, you do not have to both be online at the same time. When I click on Chat, it allows me to communicate, to post something at any time, and it keeps a running record of this. It never disappears. It can't be deleted. And you can look at it by day. Okay, so currently there's only one person live in this class, and that's me. But you'll see that we've been having an ongoing conversation. So no dark sarcasm in the classroom. You can tell people are being really chatty in these conversations. But you can leave it up here. You can post something. You can post a question. You can respond back to a student. And it's all here for you. And you can actually kind of tear that down by day if you just want to look at one day's activities. So that's kind of a way that it's not synchronous, but it's a way that you can communicate about certain questions you have about the classroom. The Google Hangouts and our Google products that we'll be adding with our Ivy Learn environment are still being worked on from the technical side, so I can't even give you an example right now of how that works. But just know that that's coming, and there's training events coming up too about how to use those Google Forms and Google Hangouts in the near future. So that's Blackboard Instant Messaging and the equivalent in our Ivy Learn environment. Okay, so we've talked about grades, we've talked about BBIM. The one other thing I want to encourage you to share with your students are supplemental materials. There's nothing more than actually teaching in the online environment. And there is a lot of reading, okay? So if you've ever thought about creating your own supplemental materials, your own little webcast, or your own YouTube video, if you're not sure if you want to do that or commit to doing that every single week, okay, or creating a PowerPoint presentation every single week, think about that topic that you teach, and there's always that one area that people really struggle with, okay? So can someone give me an example of that one topic that students just struggle with in your class every single semester? You know that's the trouble topic. It's going to take you a little extra time to get through it. Yeah, so Catherine says theory, fluid and electrolytes from Heather, APA format. Those are all great things. You know those are going to be a little bit difficult. So this is where I would focus my attention. Okay, I know that my students struggle with APA format, for example, so I'm going to maybe do a little lecture about APA formatting, or I'm going to create a study guide for them, and this is where I'm going to spend a little bit of my extra time creating some extra materials for them to be successful with that topic. And that's a great place to start when you start doing supplemental materials. Right now, it is a little bit difficult to create your own webcam or web broadcast. You can use GoTo products. You can also, use your own YouTube account as well. Now, when we go into the Ivy Learn environment, it gets very, very easy to do. So when we go into Ivy Learn, and I'm just going to go to the announcement page, any place where you can get to your content editor, okay, here's your content editor. You can always create a little web message. So when I click on record and upload media, this is a little film strip area. Okay, it's going to allow me to record media or upload media. So I give it a title. And I don't even actually have my webcam turned on, but if I did, it would allow me to, it would prompt me here to record my message. It's very easy to use. Okay, so creating lecture materials in the Ivy Learn environment is a little bit easier, but just remember for accessibility purposes, we want to make sure that anytime we add any type of narrated PowerPoint or lectures, that we're always providing a transcript of that information. Again, that's good communication. Okay. Well, I've been doing a lot of talking, and I want to make sure that I answer your questions. We've discussed a lot of different things about communication tools. I did want to go back to and talk a little bit about our GoToWebinar or our GoTo products. You can request your very own GoTo meeting space. GoToMeeting is for 25 people or less. You can use, it's a screen sharing, it's very simple to use. I'm using GoToWebinar, which gives me a few extra bells and whistles, including some registration and reporting issues. But you can request that by putting in a help desk ticket. I would suggest using your GoTo meeting space for office hours, online office hours, or before midterms and finals. Maybe you want to do a study session for students, or you can even do weekly sessions if you like. But just remember, when you do a synchronous event using GoTo or any product that's synchronous, you cannot require that. That cannot be a requirement of the course unless that course was advertised as a synchronous course. Okay, so we do have some two-way video conferencing courses. We have some web classes that we offer, but students, when they register, know that's what they're registering for, and it's very clearly spelled out during the registration process. So anytime that you do a GoTo meeting space, GoToWebinar, any kind of synchronous event, remember that is an optional event for your students. You cannot require that. All right. I'm going to open it up for questions. Oh, so Brenda wanted to know, did I select the media button just now? Yes. So when I go here, I'm in IB Learn, there's this little film strip. Okay. And if I had my webcam plugged in, it would prompt me if I wanted to record. So yes, it's very straightforward and easy to use. That's also available in the Grade Center feedback, so very, very cool. You could give your students a quick, you know, hey, I really like what you did with this paper. Make sure you're watching for grammar. So pretty cool. Yes, it's free. You can use that. Brenda wanted to know if it was a free service. It is. And Debbie says that's much easier than the voice tools in Blackboard. Absolutely. GoToMeeting is free for instructors, absolutely. There is no cost to you. You would just simply put in a help desk ticket requesting your GoToMeeting account. GoToMeeting is designed for up to 25 people to be online at one time. Okay, so there's 25 people at once. GoToWebinar, that's where you get into 1,000 people or less. And then there's actually a GoToTraining, which is also, I think, 1,000 people or less, but that doesn't get used very often. GoToMeeting is usually what most faculty are using and having a lot of success with it. It's very, very simple. Let me see here. Let me put this together. I'm going to put together my control panel. I've got it all spread apart. So let me show you what this looks like. I'll just share my GoToWebinar control panel. Okay, let me see if I can show this clean. Oh, okay. Trying to get it so we can have a better background here. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the GoToWebinar control panel. It's very similar to your GoToMeeting webinar space, and it allows you to collapse and open up your GoToWebinar control panel. It allows you the microphone to turn that off and on. You can show your screen. And anything I do on my desktop is also viewable to the audience. So if I wanted to bring up the website, I would just be able to click on my web link and bring that over. I have 2 monitors, so I'm dragging and dropping. Okay. If I had a Word document or even a PowerPoint, I can do that. Any kind of screen sharing, it's very simple to use just simply by clicking on that particular link. Okay, there's the way to set up your audio. You can see all the attendees. And then, of course, here's our chat box and our question box. Okay, so that is the go-to product. Very, very simple to use. Okay, I want to make sure I get all of your questions. Okay. Heather has a question about the communication plan assignment. The module page indicates there is a communication plan portfolio template, but I cannot locate it. I will take a look, but you can also, let's see, if you go here into your Blackboard course, let's walk through that. Let me see. I apologize. It's been a while since I've taught this particular course. So let me get in there with you. I'm in the instructor view, so you'll see that the edit mode is still on. Going into Module 5. I'm scrolling down to the communication plan. Okay. So when I click on this link, this is an assignment or a portfolio link. I click communication plan. Tells me my points possible. Okay. And here's where I select it. Okay. So I can select a portfolio or create a portfolio. And I'm going to select portfolio. And I'm going to select it should say communication plan. Maybe I did that wrong. Hang on. There we go. It automatically defaults to that. So let me walk you through that again. I apologize, I clicked the wrong one. When I'm in my course, I'm in Module 5. So we'll walk through this whole process again. So I'm opening up the course. I'm going to Modules on my course menu. And I'm scrolling down to the communication plan. Okay, when I click on communication plan, I'm going to select create portfolio for the first time. I give it a title, and you should probably name it your name. So okay, and you'll see that the template has already been selected for you, the Online Faculty Communication Plan. And then I click Submit. Okay, it'll give you a tour that you can show you how to use this particular tool, and then you're going to fill in each one of these areas. Okay, so here's Catherine's portfolio. And I'm not going to save that, so that'll be That'll disappear. Okay, so that's how you get to that. When you're creating your communication plan, I want you to think very specifically, how am I going to teach this course? And how much time is it going to take me? How long am I going to need for my particular discipline to grade assignments? How long is it going to take me to create my supplemental materials if I want to do an online lecture or if I want to find some open education resources? I want you to think very carefully on how much time you think that will take. How often am I going to be logging in to Blackboard and answering questions for my students? What are my communication tools? Am I going to use messages, or am I going to use my IVTech email account? And really think about, how often am I going to be participating in that discussion board? How am I going to do more than just weekly announcements? And how long does it take to create that? So really think about what you're communicating, how you're communicating, and then also how long that's going to take. Now, to balance that out, though, you want to make sure that when you're teaching a course from our statewide library of online courses, so we have 300 courses that are part of the statewide library. A lot of those tools have already been selected for you, so you're not building content. You're going to be using the tools that that help you communicate the course content. So, for example, you might really like the wiki tool, but that might not necessarily be something that's been created for your online course. Okay? So think about how you could use that. Is that going to be a supplemental material? And to really think about those tools and what you want to do and how you want to communicate. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. What other questions do you have today? We're coming to the end of our time. Okay. All right. Any last questions? All right. So you're so welcome, Kevin and Valerie and Heather. Brenda wants to know if we're going to be having another one next week. I sometimes don't do a second one next week, but if you think that will be beneficial, I'd be more than happy to meet with you online. Does anyone have any thoughts? To those of you who are saying thank you, you're quite welcome. Who would like to meet again next week online? Yes, different topic. Okay, I see several of you who would like to meet again. Okay. All right, well, I'll tell you what, I will go ahead and schedule something for next week at the same times and dates. Oh, goodness gracious, Heather, thank you for reminding me. I will be in French Lick next week, so I might do our a Tuesday next week, the same, what is today? Today's Wednesday. I will do Wednesday again next week, or possibly a Tuesday. It won't be required. In case you have any questions, we'll do like a Q&A session, and I'll be available for that. I am going to French Lick for the Student Success Summit as well, so Heather, thank you for reminding me of that. I'll try to do something next, either Wednesday or we'll do it next Wednesday. We'll just be available at this time next week for questions and answers. Not required. It'll be completely optional. Okay. All right, great. Again, thank you very much for your time. You are wonderful, wonderful instructors, and I appreciate your extra patience as you're learning how to teach online in both the Blackboard environment and also our Ivy Learn environment. I think you'll love the Ivy Learn environment even more. So I'm available for questions anytime, so don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you again, and have